Good morning, gardening friends. My name is Lark, and I'm in Wisconsin, Zone 5. And it's Tea Time Tuesday. I want to take you on a walk through the yard. This is a Diablo 9 bark. We like the burgundy foliage color, really attracts the bees right now. And then the viburnum is in the center and just finishing up. And then a burning bush. Crabapple, prairie fire. Leftover shredded hemlock for my front sidewalk path. That seedlings are coming up and I didn't want them to put that on yet. So when I go through the reseeds, like the Victoria salvia and some marigolds, I will pull them out while I am putting the bark down and throw them in a bucket of worm tea water. And that way the little root system will stay nourished and hydrated while I finish the front path, and then I'll transplant them. Comfrey. Now this one here, I don't know where it came from, and it's a white variety. But this here gets chopped and dropped right on the asparagus patch, which I did not get a good harvest from, and I haven't since I put it in. But it'll come through the years. Dill is in here, calendula, and raspberries that are traveling across the path. Can you see them there? I'll dig them out and give them away. My raspberries. I'm starting over here today because last week I ran out of time. Garlic. This one is supported a little by the chicken wire and then the recycled gazebo here. And it's holding it up, so I didn't have to string it. Then there's peas back here, which aren't liking the garlic shading it, but I think I'll get some off. Here, more garlic. That garlic over there was German hardneck, and this is music. And this here I do support with string. Can you see the twine there? And the twine around here, so it doesn't flop over. And then onions. Oh, I think these onions are red wing. Cucumbers I planted, and they're going to go up this little metal sculpture. And some Reuben basil. Lots of borage coming up. As Kay knows, lots of borage. She let it go get out of hand from late bloomer, and it went crazy in her garden, and it was a chore to pull it out. Too much of it, so I only leave a few. Some green onions. And in the hoop house is my broccoli and broccoli and Swiss chard. All the greens. And I forgot to open it again. I'll show you maybe next week. In here I planted my holy basil all along by the onions. Lots of dragonflies this year. Found I had a couple holes in the row cover, so I used duct tape on both sides. We don't want that white butterfly in there. All calendula. It's dark now. And Verbena Buenos Aires is in here for my annuals that'll attract more bees. My perennial garden's right next to it, so I get bees from that. But I like the look of flowers in between the veggies. Peppers, different kinds. Tomatoes. I just have, what, 1, 2, 3, 8 up here. Chives. Some pole beans, very few. I have to put in a few more seeds. These are Vortex. And then more peas. What else is in there? Oh, cilantro and parsley. More cilantro in the cement bricks. I'm going to go on the other side here. And spearmint. You know I like mojitos. Saturday night mojito. Some sage, new. And then there is a couple coming back right here. Just a couple. And basil in between. Now this is my carrots coming up. And last year I had Verbena Buenos Aires in here. And I let it reseed. And oh, I hope I'm not sorry. I have to weed it out around the carrot. Or it's not going to grow a good bulb, I wouldn't think. Unless because the carrot is so deep, the Verbena Buenos Aires won't bother it. Maybe I'll do a section seeing if it grows with it in there and some weeded out. Greek oregano, more basil. I see a red spider mite on here. Yep. I'm going to have to spray with soapy water. Peppermint. Can you see some of the peppers coming on there? Yeah. Yep. That's the Italian roaster over there. Now those are ones I started on February 5th and used my clear mini tote for greenhouse. And same with this tomato. I started really early. Not a super size, but I'm going to have an early harvest. That's a what is that? Super beefsteak. All four of those were started early, and then these were started a little later. I think a month later. And I couldn't throw out 2 extra tomatoes, so I put them in the flower garden. Especially in Amish paste, because I do use those for sauces and for canning. I use them all, but I prefer the Amish paste or aroma because of it is more meaty. Oh, how can I forget my comfrey? Now that comfrey there I use medicinally for poultices, and I also use it for oil infusions and for mulching. I mean, there's so much of it. So the veggie garden will get mulched with that. Some in substance, new plants. Transplanted, I think last year or the year before. I should look into that because every week I tell you I can't remember when I did it. I think it was a year or 2 ago. No more than that. My arch is planted. I'm having morning glory and scarlet runner bean. And it goes up, 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 up. And those are recycled from the gazebo we had on the deck. We bought a new one. All hemlock, shredded hemlock he uses here, because it's supposed to deter the bugs more than the regular shredded bark. Columbine. I just let it come up here and there, wherever it wants. Celandine poppy, going to seed. Remember, this is how it looks like when it goes to seed and it pops. Or you can cut it back when it's ready to pop and throw it where you want it. All seeds on the Jacob's ladder. So I either chop and drop that, or I chop it and put it where I want more blue, which might be back there behind the hostas. Because I did plant bee balm back there and I don't see it coming up. But I might have planted it too late in fall. Color, lots of color right now. Geraniums will get cut back, cranesbill, wild cranesbill. Lots of milkweed, but we leave it in this section here for the monarchs. Can you see it all? Tallest there. Siberian iris are starting, as well as the common peony. It's all milkweed behind that peony there. And then the allium. A couple different kinds in the garden. Last week I showed you this one and it was just budding out. It will get bigger. Nice size. Can you see all the stems there? Kind of backlit, so maybe you can see them. I dropped a lot of feverfew seed in here last fall, but then we have a lot of leaves in here, so I might remove some of them and put the leaves on a different area or under these hostas for mulch and let the light get at the feverfew. Now you see how I cut down the Jacobs? And it'll send out new green growth. And perilla, an herb with lamb's quarters. A lot of lamb's quarters right in this area because it's right outside the kitchen, so I can come out and get it for my salads and for my cooked greens. Siberian's white. Boy, are they hard to divide and transplant. If you've ever tried to transplant Siberian iris, they are really thick-rooted. And then sage or salvia. What's this one called? I don't know. If you deadhead it, if you're very persistent and patient, it will rebloom for you. It's like if you take the flower off right at its base there, and then you see the new leaves coming in, it'll branch out and bloom and keep blooming for a long time, maybe 6 weeks. But you have to take each flower off, and then it sends its energy into putting in a new flower. So pretty out. It's about 68 right now. That one's Caesar's brother. I think the other one is butter and cream, the white one. Lupine. The same goes with lupine and the feverfew I talked about. The seed has to have light. So, or at least in my garden, it multiplies faster if it just drops and has light. And there's mulch in too many areas, so I will check it out back there. There should be lupine in the center of the garden. Spiderwort. Now that's giving me a good filler right now. There is the blue, and then there is a fuchsia that I thought I took out, but I see it's still in the garden. I took out the hot pink fuchsia colored one and I put it in the wild area just to keep it separated, but oh, Mother Nature wins. because Lark is not going to take it out anymore. Oh, how many of you are familiar with Baptisia or wild indigo? Just starting to bloom. That is a long-lived perennial. Reseeds a lot, but doesn't spread crazy. Variegation in the garden, especially if it isn't a high maintenance variegated perennial. This is a sedum, is pretty good at not reverting back to green. But if it does, just clip the green part down to the ground and it'll keep growing. Just keep the green out. But the leaf itself stays variegated pretty good. Fleabane, a wild herb, but can go crazy. But I call it a see-through plant. Look, it's right up front here. See the grass edge? And I let it come up right up front for a while and give me some white in the garden and color close up. Oxeye daisies. Good for now, this time of the year. Valerian, another herb I love. Not only great for a sedative tea, but it also is very fragrant. Very fragrant. Pretty foliage. Looks kind of fern-like. And again, a see-through plant. It's tall. It gets to be 3-4 foot tall. But I can see all the pretty lilies that are going to be blooming behind it. Plus, after this blooms, I'll scatter the seed, and then the foliage will only be about a foot higher, if even that. You know I like the burgundy foliage in the garden. And then that's the Teresa Boudet shrub rose. I told you last week it suckers, but it's pretty. And it reblooms, especially if I cut it back a little. In the day I used to deadhead it and save the petals when they just opened, and then dry the petals. Use it for an oil infusion, even fresh. Weigela wine and roses, a lot of dieback on the wine and roses compared to the red prince. Variegated Heliopsis. Oh, right there. That one reverts back, but it gives you a pretty yellow flower. So sometimes if I have a lot of them, I'll pull out the original dark green color. Nice sedum with a yellow flower. Ground cover sedum. Along with Autumn Joy, which I don't know how it got so close. Can you see all my grass? Still haven't gotten in here to weed, guys. Where should we go? Well, let's go this way because I can head for the shade before my time runs out. Do any of you have ant problems? Oh, boy, they love making ant hills in this rock here. The only thing that likes growing it in is my weeds. But it'll come out. We'll take care of it. Smoke bush. So pretty backlit. I hope I don't give you too much sun interference here, but it's such a pretty color, this. Oh, oh, why does it keep going? I wasn't even pressing on it. You know, Joe Pie is coming up here and there and everywhere too. So I must have not been really good about deadheading it last year. And those little fuzzies on the Joe Pie that look like a dandelion fuzzy go all over. Ladies' Mantle. Every year, you guys, I tell you, I like it. Oh, there's some more Joe Pie too. Oh well, it's going to be pretty. I think it will be pretty. And if it isn't pretty, I just cut it down. Some Japanese painted ferns. Oh, I see the deer pruned my Solomon seal. I didn't get back there. See how they pruned it down? And that will not continue growing up and arching. It'll just spread by the root. But I wasn't good enough about spraying, and we had a lot of rain, and I didn't respray my pepper spray. Lance Corporal, Persicaria. Talked about it last year. And yes, I let it spread, so it's coming up all over. But the burgundy in the leaf is pretty, and soon the astilbe will be blooming, and it'll coordinate with the burgundy in the Persicaria. Oh boy, the sun is just peeking in between this old oak tree branches, and look how it's lighting up this area on Golden Scepter. Golden Scepter is a very fast grower and stays golden even in the heat of summer, which a lot of the goldens do not. They will turn more green. The only downside of it is it's thin-leafed, so consequently hot sun burns it, and the deer really like it. So far so good, no deer. So when columbine's done here, what'll be blooming is masterwort. And this one here is, I think, a pinkish burgundy. Short goat's beard. And when I feel like it, or feel that I can do it, I will divide that. That's a short goat's beard. And it would look nice in another part of the garden, so I will divide it. Tall goat's beard is back behind the Blue Angel hostas. Japanese maple coming back from dieback. Total dieback to the ground. My ferns, so pretty. Look at the movement in them. So important to have movement in the garden. So pretty. Lily of the Valley are done, and I could edge it and tear out a whole bunch. Probably go about 2 foot in around that bed of Lily of the Valley and just toss. But be careful where you toss, because you will get more plants. So sometimes I'll just throw them on the burn pile. This is the Sweet Sicily going to seed. I'll show it to you when it gets black. And the seeds and the greens are very fennel tasting, licorice tasting. Another Sum and Substance. Now that one there gets a lot of sun in the afternoon. But it seems to do okay. The thick-leafed, the deer don't like. Or they don't prefer it. Depends on how hungry they are. I did put in some in substance all in a half, like a horseshoe around these blues, but the one up on top isn't coming so good. So I will dig in some of my greens that I, give my worms up in the house, the bucket I have under the sink, and I'll fertilize the dirt with greens, but I make sure I go about a few inches away from the root ball so it doesn't suck nitrogen from the soil. Breaking down of garbage or wood chips is a pretty blue. I think this one is Casa Regal. You see how it stays a little more upright? And that I don't know, but it stays tiny. Now here's some feverfew that reseeded from last year. This I try to keep, and there's not as much mulch on the ground, but the seeds get light down here. Well, some, daylight. It's still in mostly shade, but it gives me white down here. See, tiny, tiny, tiny some in substance. They'll get big. Maybe I'll still be here when they get big. My trumpet vine tree. Look at that stem. Trumpet vine. That's my finger. How am I doing here, guys? I have about 3 more minutes. And I think I covered the highlights pretty good. Oh, I know. And a very good perennial, too, is snow in the summer. Ground cover, nice on the edge because it's very dry on the edge here. See it with silver foliage? I talk about it every year. But it's pretty all the way down the garden. Just give it a haircut after it blooms and it'll tidy itself up. Hawkweed is also starting to bloom, and that gives you a nice orange. Whoops, 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 I'm bouncing too much here. Hawkweed really likes full sun here. So that's it, my friends. Thank you for stopping by another week. I like having you stop. I like replying to your comments. I try to. Take care and happy gardening. See you next week.